Welcome to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast, presented by the Fantasy Football World Championship, home to the industry's most accurate rankings.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Adam Krautwurst. And with me, as always, is Mr. Full-Time himself, Jody Smith. How are you doing this evening, my friend?
Doing good, man. I feel like I'm back in my groove. It was a couple of weird, weeks to start the season. And, here in the last couple of weeks, I finished 15th and 11th for the week at Fantasy Pros. So I feel like, all right, I've got a little bit of the craziness behind me, and I'm back in the groove. So things are starting round in shape. And this past week, as crazy as it was actually a good week for all of my managed teams, because I don't think week 3 was all that great. I lost the King Classic League that I'm in. I've scored the most points, and I was 2-0. And on that Monday night game with Washington, I lost by 1 yard. Drake. I lost 123.2 to 123.1. So that was pretty frustrating.
That's gross. That's gross. And you know me, I do so many stinking leagues that every week there's a matchup or two where I win by a point or I lose by a point. And I never want to go and even look at like the mistake, the starting lineup mistake that I made.
What killed me in that one was going with a red hot Baker Mayfield over San Francisco's quarterback. Why is his name? Brock. That was the move that killed me.
Yeah, that's a lot of times it's the quarterback. Quarterback scoring was way down this year, and scoring in general in the NFL, fantasy scoring is way down. It's even going to get worse now with the bye weeks on top of the injuries. What are your before we dig in deep here? Today we're going to talk about where we were right, where we were wrong, type of deal. But what are your thoughts overall on the season so far, as far as just fantasy in general?
Well, it's like you said, it's been scoring down. It's probably hard for maybe the average viewer to really take that into consideration, but us are looking at numbers and things behind the scenes. We're seeing this crazy thing, and I'm guessing it has to do with Adam. You've been doing this long enough where everything is cyclical. It just takes because back when I started, running backs dominated football, and then after a while, defenses finally started figuring it out, and you saw the transition from college offenses to the NFL and how that's been, more or less about a decade now. And defensive coordinators are starting to catch up finally. And you're seeing the prevalence of this too high safety look, which is really slowing down all these deep shots. And it's just really slowing down the pace on offense. So offenses are having to throw more underneath passes. That's why you see a guy like Chris Godwin, who we all really liked. He's really killing it this year. And it can change. And smart offenses, even in this season, will hopefully start figuring things out. But like you said, we're about to talk about our hits and mainly our misses and what lessons we've learned from that. So.
Yeah. I think to your point about it's cyclical in the quarterback, but it's like everyone wants that dual threat quarterback that can run and throw and be super athletic. But a lot of times, so now we got the too high safety look where you got to be able to read a defense and pick it apart with your arm and not your legs. And a lot of quarterbacks aren't ready to do that, especially young rookies when they come in. They're used to kind of running around in college. And now it's back to okay, you got to be able to pick the defense apart underneath. And so, like you said, maybe it'll get back to all right, well, now they're playing too high looks, cover 2, cover 4. Maybe the running backs will start killing. The running backs have been doing better than the receivers so far this season. So, we'll dive into a little bit of that. But let's start some spots where we were wrong so far this year, Jody. I think we're at a point now, week 4, going into week 5, where we could say, okay, some things. We're not going to talk a lot about injuries because injuries happen, but some things that we thought we were right about that we were wrong about. And I'll let you go ahead and fire off the first one.
Yeah, a thing I always talk about with people is I like to see, a team play about 4 games before I realize, okay, this is probably who they're going to be. Because generally that's a quarter of the season. It's a nice enough sample size. Typically, when you see a team really struggling to defend the pass, they're going to struggle all year. And that works on offense, and it generally works on defense. So taking it into mind, like I said, we've reached that point now where every team is in the 4 games. So we kind of have a feel. That's why I think it's probably okay for us to, look back at some of the regrets and some of the things. Probably the biggest miss for me will be interesting because he hasn't been terrible, but Patrick Mahomes. I look back at my final rankings for the season, and I had him as my QB1. So obviously I elevated all supporting cast members of the Chiefs. I had Travis Kelce as my tight end number 1. And it's just been bizarre to see a quarterback who was as elite as Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what the figures are, but it feels like it's well into last season. It's been 10, 12, 15 games since he's had like a really elite fantasy performance. And that's a huge sample size. I was just talking about how 4 games is generally enough. And you go back well into last season since we've seen one of them dominant 300 something plus yard, 4 touchdown games out of Mahomes, which seems like, back in the day, he was hitting that every 2, every 4 games. And now you're looking at just another devastating blow for that team. The one thing that was missing from them last year, and this was a team good enough to still win the Super Bowl, but you had like no deep threat last year. And now you thought with signing Hollywood Brown, bringing in Xavier Worthy, that was going to open things up. And here, Brown never played it down. Worthy has still, has not had the look of a kid that's ready to take on a bigger role. Although now that Rashee Rice looks like he's looking at a multi-week absence, Worthy's going to have to step up. But all in all, like I said, when you take those chances, when you're doing rankings and all that, and you're gambling, that not really a gamble because most people had Mahomes as QB2, right, QB4. I just decided I think the inclusion of this speed element to the Chiefs is going to be awesome, and I really like Isaiah Pacheco. It's not I won't chalk Pacheco off to a miss because I don't want to put a guy that got hurt and say that we missed on him because he was playing out of his head, amazing before he got injured. But the Chiefs. Yeah. Talking about my biggest miss this year, I feel like Mahomes so far, he's outside of QB1 range right now. With the injuries that are now taking place for the Chiefs, it's hard to see. We keep thinking he's going to rebound. It's hard to see him getting back in to even finish as a top 5, top 6 quarterback at this point. Maybe he sneaks into QB1 range at that point. At this point, I'll take that. But it's getting to the point now where he's not necessarily a guy, right now that you feel like, he's locked in to start. And by me overranking Mahomes, again, it's caused me to miss on so many elements of that offense, including Kelce. And, at least we saw a sign of life out of Kelce this week.
Yeah.
It's nice. But all in all, it's just been, a really poor performance for their standards. And, again, this is an undefeated team still. So
you're right. I know.
In a hurry, and hopefully they do. But I feel like that was probably my biggest miss of the preseason so far.
Yeah, I think, like you said on Kelce, I think Kelsey's actually – this might help him, all of the injuries kind of get back rolling now. And the team leagues I have him in, I'm excited about how they finally started forcing it to him there at the end because I don't think they were going to do that. But, again, a lot of the injuries hurt Mahomes, obviously, and – he hasn't had a great season so far. And he's a guy, when I do my start sit column, I don't really like to talk about obvious guys, but Mahomes may be a guy now where I'm telling people to start him because he's QB 14 or QB 15. He might be a guy that we have to put in the, hey, you might want to start Mahomes this week article because he is going to be ranked pretty low because he does not have the best weapons. And it's been a while since he's been an elite fantasy producer for sure. So, Scott asks, the boss man, Scott asks in the chat, kind of going along with that, are we cutting Rashee Rice? Tonight, I'm not cutting Rashee Rice. I know a lot of the waivers go through tonight and Wednesday. Because we don't know if it's an ACL yet. And if we don't know, we're holding on to him.
Generally, you would think it would have, even if there's substantial swelling, if there was a completely torn ACL, we would have already heard that by now. It could be a number of different things, and he may still, in fact, his season may be over, but it's a hold at this point because maybe it's a PCL or a meniscus or something that, sprained really badly, and maybe he's only out for a month or so. So he's still a hole for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the team's looking like, oh, what do I do? Hopefully, if you have Rashee Rice, you're in really good shape. I mean, he's been a top, 5-10 receiver, let's see, all season. So hopefully you are in good. Well, he had a 0 last week, so that kind of killed you. But he's still a top 10 receiver, even or a top 12 receiver with that 0. So hopefully you're in good shape. And if he's only out for if he's out for like 6 to 8 weeks, that's like the beginning of the fantasy playoffs. Hopefully you can work without him there. Jody, you're doing the projection and stuff like that. We're getting off track, but I like this where this conversation's going. What are the receivers now there? Who are we picking up? Are we picking up anybody? Is it Juju? Is it Watson? Is it the ghost of Sky Moore, like a former top pick? Like, where?
From my eyes, I don't see how Justin Watson's role changes all that much, because I don't think unless you're looking at fantasy numbers and projections every week, you don't realize how much he actually plays quite a bit and has. Yeah. He did last year and he has in the first 4 games of this year. I don't see how his role changed. He's mainly like their wide receiver 3, and he's mainly his job is just to run deep and clear things out. Every once in a while, he catches a 35-yard pass. Yeah. If you're in some sort of emergency thing where that's good enough to if you're in a 14-team league and it's a bunch of bye weeks and you're willing to be like, I'll take 4 or 5 points this week, he might fit the spot. It sounds like, interestingly for me, I'm more interested in picking up Noah Gray as I think they're going to run more 12 sets. I mean, Gray's been playing plenty anyway, but it feels like, I think last week he had 3 or 4 catches, and I think that's probably the smartest thing to do for Andy Reid and for the Chiefs. And Gray's unrostered in a lot of leagues. I feel like he'll be the benefactor mainly, and Juju Smith-Schuster, it feels like he's probably as close as they have to Rashee Rice on the roster. Now, Smith-Schuster's a really interesting case because I think this is probably his 15th pro season, yet somehow he's only 27. Right. Yeah, he's been around forever. Like, we've seen this kid, and he was really good at first, and we've seen this guy. It's almost like he's a fading, aging veteran, like a Brandon Cooks type that's on the back end of their career, and they used to be a really dependable option, and now they're not so much anymore. And like I said, he's only 27. So, maybe he benefits more. McCole Hardman, these lesser guys on the roster, I'd be interested, depending on if I'm in a deep league and with all the injuries, I got a bunch of IR spots and they're all occupied. You could take some shots on these guys, but I think really this week will be, telling of, how the rotation plays out. From my eyes, the savvy move is to pick up the second tight end.
Yes, that's a good point. I just texted a buddy of mine. I got a million teams. We do waivers together. I just actually texted him, hey, go back through there and look at some of the leagues where we need a tight end and throw some bids in there on Noah Gray, because I actually didn't prioritize that. So that's good.
And he's been involved already in this offense. Even was it week 1 where he was?
Yes,
he outplayed. You're like, okay, that's an outlier. Like, well. Not really until week 4.
And Permar says here, don't forget about the Deontay Johnson, the trading for a receiver. There's the Devontae Adams. There's that type of stuff. I've got so much Deontay Johnson. My God, if he went to the Chiefs, I would just be to the moon.
I'm fine with Deontay staying right where he is as long as you stick with Andy Dalton.
As long as Dalton's a QB.
Just been peppered with targets the last couple of games. So I'm perfectly fine with that.
I'm fine either way. All right. One of mine here, Jody, and I like to, I'm more of a player than I am an analyst, so I'd like to look at things from more of a macro. You're more of a micro guy here, and for me, the first thing where I was wrong was the tight end position as a whole. The way I was drafting, I like to go, and I guess I'll couple into one. I'll couple my first 2 things where I was wrong into kind of one thing. I was wrong about the tight end position, and I was wrong about the hero 0 RB strategy. And the reason why I put those 2 together is because when you go hero or 0 RB, the way that you're really supposed to do that is you're supposed to take an elite tight end and or an elite quarterback in that mix, so that you're great at receiver, you got that elite running back, and then you get yourself an elite tight end and elite quarterback to build that super team. Well, I was wrong about hero 0 RB, and I was wrong about the elite or about the tight end position. What's going on in the tight end position is none of the elite guys are hitting, right? We've got, Kittle has been okay. in the 3 games that he's played. Bowers has been really good, but he wasn't considered an elite. He wasn't going to the top 3, 4, 5 guys generally. Kincaid's been a bust. McBride's been a bust. Kelsey's been a bust. Laporta's been a bust. I mean, all of them. Pitts you can drop. Andrews you can probably drop, but Andrews has been a bust. Like, all these guys have been so bad, and we've been starting them week in and week out. I mean, Andrews has 2 zeros already on the season. Pitts just is coming off of a 0, and a guy like Pitts is like, you don't want to not start him. Like, what's the worst thing? I said this on the show maybe last week. What's the worst thing that can happen if you don't start Pitts? He goes for 3 for 70 and a touchdown. Like, that's the worst. It's not like a Mark Andrews could go for 10 or 11 catches in a game if they decide to go to him. That'll never happen for Kyle Pitts. You could feel free to drop Kyle Pitts. He might have one good game in the next 5. You'll be fine. But the tight end position this year has been an absolute abomination. I mean, the top tight ends now are Goddard, Kittle, Bowers, Cole Kmet. You've got Freiermuth in there, who I like a lot. Thank God I've got a lot of Freiermuth to kind of save me. Zach Ertz is in the top 10. Gesicki's up there. It's like, it's just been crazy.
What year is this again?
I know. What year is this? 2018 with these guys? But I don't know. What are you seeing when you're doing your projections? What are you seeing from the tight end position? Why is it like this?
Well, you're trying to win accuracy contests and all. Fear of missing out on what you just said was, you finally bench Kyle Pitts and he finally goes off. That's a fear that's in all of us, even me. I feel like this is the week I'm finally going to downgrade Patrick Mahomes. This is the week I'm finally going to rank Travis Kelce as my tight end 13 because, that's what he's been averaging. That's what he's been doing. I just can't do it anymore. I can't keep ranking him number 2. But in the back of your mind, you're worried about it. And it happens. It is what it is. But overall, this has been like just a disastrous season for tight ends from weird usage and real disappointment to injuries and just flat out refusal to include guys. I mean, with Pitts, that's one of the more frustrating ones because I've never been the biggest Pitts guy personally, but we thought, okay, now ding dong, the witch is dead. Arthur Smith's in Pittsburgh. Let him screw up things for Pat Freiermuth. But now, we'll have a real coach who'll understand how to use Kyle Pitts. Oh, it's the same thing. Even with Bijan, it's the same thing. I pointed that out. Like, here we have, granted, Bijan was dealing with a little bit of a hamstring issue in the last game, but, Tyler Algier comes in and it's going crazy again. It's very frustrating. And, overall, the Falcons, I wrote that in my Thursday night football preview this week, how they've kind of underachieved, and some of it's on Kirk Cousins. A lot of it's on just bad luck. But, I mean, I think the way that offense is played, they're lucky to even be 2-2 at this point. But, I mean, it goes to show, it felt like a year or two ago, Adam, that tight end was becoming so – they were becoming so involved in offenses and this element of these new kids who were coming from college as downfield, legitimate receiving threats. And it was really opening up the game. It was almost like, I believe we had plenty of conversations with people talking about how they were looking forward to flexing a tight end every week. So if I can go robust tight end, I'm going to do that. And man, it's just been completely blown up in your face. Because at this point, I'd rather be in a league where I'm not even forced to have that player on my roster altogether. And again, it feels like 0 RB. This was the biggest year yet for that strategy, and it's completely backfired. I mean, at least for the first quarter of the season. No Snake just mentioned in the chat that it's too early to call hits and misses. Maybe not, but it feels like a lot of 0 RB teams are probably struggling right now. 2-2 at best, 1-3, maybe even worse.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too late because I think, like, in a lot of these seasons, the regular season isn't as long. Like, it's 12 weeks, 13, whatever. Like, it's just hard. Like, you go start 1-3, you really got to fight back and all that type of stuff. Mar mentions in the chat too that Pitts doesn't attack the football, runs it 100%. Like, I'm not even saying that Pitts is good anymore because I've seen enough this year where last year was an injury. The year before that was the quarterback and this and that. It's like I've seen enough this year of the Madden view of when he plays from behind the quarterback. He's running these lazy clear out routes. I mean, it is mind blowing that they can't dial up a 5-yard drag route for him. Like they can't dial up anything to get him going, like whatever. And he's not a very good route runner and all that stuff. But
you're still talking about Pitts?
Yeah, Pitts.
Oh yeah, he's not. I don't know if it's him. I don't know if it's the route tree they're running. He's just not gaining separation.
He's just not. It's just terrible. But back to the hero zero RB, I completely agree with you there. Like it's just been an issue. I mean, if you think of like hero RB, the issues that we've had. I mean, even if you hit on the first running back, let's say your hero RB was Saquon. Let's say your hero RB was Gibbs. You're probably still fine. Breece Hall's been okay. He's been a top 12 back. CMC's been a disaster. And Bijan's been a disaster. I mean, Bijan's RB like 20, with one touchdown on the year. So it's not even the top guys because the top guys really haven't been Kyron. Yeah. Even the middle second round, Kyron's been good. JT, Gibbs, like a lot. Achan's been. It's the fact that when you went hero zero RB, you didn't take any of those dead zone running backs. The Alvin Kamaras, the Aaron Joneses, the James Cooks, those are the teams that are 4-0 right now. Those
yes,
the Kenneth Walker, who's RB 20 and he missed 2 games. All those guys, you weren't taking those guys when you went hero and zero RB, and those are guys that are hitting now. The reason why you went hero and zero RB is because you want to avoid the major injuries that always happen to the running back position. And in that sense, we are still early. We're only 4 games in. Like I wanted to put down, Blake Corum as one of my misses, but we're still early in the year. He's had 0 points. Kyron Williams is still 195 pounds, and he's taken these 30 touches a game. Like if he can last 30 touches a game for the whole season, I'll be shocked. So,
but it's a little early for Corum, but it's funny because I was taking little notes here and I was going to mention him as one of my hits because I didn't want nothing to do with Blake Corum in this offseason. I was like 7 or 8 spots below consensus on him just because, slow. But, either way. But, yeah, you can't be throwing a party necessarily for him yet. But the fact that he's not playing any snaps at all is pretty telling.
That is pretty. That I find very interesting. The side of me is like, they're just putting him on ice just in case. But it's like if he's that good, they would have put him out there for something somewhere. But all right, Jody, give me another one of your misses.
We can go to like I said, non-Kansas City misses. Let's see here. Bijan, another one that I already kind of hit on a little bit. The frustrating usage has unfortunately carried over. Let's look at receiver. Again, this comes with an asterisk because we have an injury to Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah. But yeah, I had Tyreek Hill as my wide receiver 1 overall. Misses at wide receiver.
I do want to say real quick, can I jump in here, Jody?
Yeah.
To your Tyreek Hill point. It's very interesting that I've seen over the last couple of years is people love, including myself, the zero hero RB because running backs get hurt more, receivers don't get hurt. They still get hurt, but not as much, right? But the problem that you have is receivers still do get hurt, but also if their quarterback gets hurt, they're screwed. So it's like you have a 2-prong if the receiver gets hurt or if the quarterback. Look at Garrett Wilson last year. Look at Tyreek Hill this year. Like all these guys, I mean, you can go through a list. I mean, look at all the receivers that are healthy, that are busting. A lot of those. Jalen Waddle. I have so much Jalen Waddle bust because his quarterback is hurt. You just get all these issues. Yep. If the quarterback goes down, you lose that receiver on top of if that receiver goes down. So it's just really hard to just say, hey, receivers don't get hurt as much, so we're going to take more and more receivers. Well, what if his quarterback gets hurt? Then you're in trouble there too. So I find that interesting. But go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned Jalen Waddle. How about Jalen Warren? We can probably call him a miss so far. Now, granted, he did miss some time with an injury, but I looked at the way Arthur Smith used his running backs in Atlanta, and I thought there was going to be enough usage and carries for both Warren and Najee Harris. And we saw last year, Jaylen Warren was around RB20 at the end of the year in PPR leagues, and it felt like people were really sleeping on him. So I was, I had him as a top 18, top 20 back coming into the season, and most people had him down, 8 or 10 spots below that. And it's going to be hard for him to come back. Perhaps when he gets up to speed here and when he's healthy, maybe the explosiveness that we've seen from him in the past gets him to recover his value a little bit. Because, Najee Harris last week, just this past Sunday, had a real chance to, dominate touches, for Pittsburgh. And he was getting outplayed by Cordell Patterson, and he did almost nothing on the ground, last week. He had a couple of catches that, produced something, but overall it was a really disappointing performance. So maybe it's not over for Jaylen Warren. Maybe he can come up back up to speed in his next game that he's healthy, and we can see some explosiveness again. But I feel like all in all, that's another guy that I was a little too high on.
Yeah. Last guy I'll do where we were wrong, and then we can get into some stuff where we were right. And I'll bring up his name again, Garrett Wilson. I mean, I had him as a top 4 or 5 receiver. Aaron Rodgers, this, that, and the third, and they just haven't been good. They haven't been on the same page. It's kind of mind blowing to me that a receiver as good as him and Rodgers doesn't even look awful. It's just they can't get on the same page. They're not doing anything creative in the offense. He's just kind of lining up out wide, running kind of these basic type of routes. And so they're just not there. And I don't know. They don't play in an up-tempo offense. He's not going to get a million. I mean, he's still, in that offense, he's fine as far as he's getting 25%, 30% to target share. Like, that isn't the issue. He's just, 11 targets, 6 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets. That should be enough, but it's 5 for 33, 4 for 57. He's got 1 touchdown on the year. I will say he's faced San Francisco's defense. He's faced New England's defense with their corners, Denver's defense with their corners, and he's got a tough one again this week. I think like 3 of his next 4 games are again. I think he's at New England again. He's got the Bills defense, which is really good against receivers. Like, his schedule the first half of the year sucks. Like, if you're in a league where you can buy, wait 2 more weeks and then go ahead and buy Garrett Wilson. A lot of these high stakes leagues and stuff, there's no trading. There's no.
Yeah, it's been a murderer's row of cornerbacks for him. And it's pretty funny seeing people that maybe even have invested in Garrett Wilson. It's pretty funny seeing them somehow rooting for Devontae Adams to get traded to the Jets. Like, no, I don't think you want to see that.
Right, that's right.
This is further going to take away from targets, because there's times when look at this game this past week from the Jets. Couldn't get anything going. Granted, weather played a part in it, but all in all, that was a pretty lousy performance. And Aaron Rodgers. Say what you want about him, but his days of those dominant fantasy performances are well into the past. So
yeah,
hard to see. You'd have to see something fundamentally change quickly for that team, for Garrett Wilson to come anywhere near finishing as a top 10 receiver, which we all thought he was, because he was a guy that was regularly going in the first round, or at least the first 14 picks. So,
well, and Jody too, he was having as good or a better year last year with the worst quarterback you've ever seen, is Zach Wilson, because Wilson will just sling it around. Rodgers is going to throw into double coverage.
That was when you were seeing what we're seeing out of Malik Neighbors right now. You were just seeing crazy target share, not like quite Malik Neighbors high, but you were just seeing a ton of target share for Wilson that he's not getting this year.
Yeah,
because obviously you want to get more passes to Tyler Conklin than Garrett Wilson.
Of course. All right, let's talk about some stuff where we were right about here. And I'm going to go first. A guy that I was touting, a guy that I have everywhere, Jaden Daniels, was a quarterback that I loved coming right out of the gate here. He is QB2 on the season. He's been unbelievable. I thought he had Lamar-esque rushing ability, along with just a beautiful deep ball. I wasn't sure about the offense and the coordinator and what they were going to do, but he's just been on a historic rate. I'm happy to have him. He's a league winning type. And I was telling people all summer, like, to win these big tournaments, man, to win these high stakes leagues, you got to pick these league winning type quarterbacks in those rounds that, he started to creep up there towards the end of the summer, but you're able to get him most of the summer, 8th, 9th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round in there. Those are the rounds where you get your early career Patrick Mahomes, your early career Josh Allen, your early career Lamar's. Those league winners come from right in that 9th, 10th, 11th round. That's where Jaden Daniels was going, and that's where I was happy to get him, and he's had a really great year so far. Yep,
total agreement. And keep in mind, he's doing this with a pretty unimpressive supporting cast
right
there in Washington. You've got a decent tight end, I guess, in Zach Ertz. You've got a great receiver in Terry McLaurin. But after that, you don't have a lot of talent. A couple of good running backs, obviously, and, Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler missed last week. But overall, they've both played, exceeded expectations. I had Daniels as a QB1. I think most of us people in the business and the industry did. It's probably only the casual listeners who were maybe missing out, but absolutely. Your objective, if you're trying to win, especially a competitive league or especially a league full of analysts and writers and all that, you have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to take those swings. So while it might have been, you might have thought, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to take, my Kirk Cousins or Trevor Lawrence or my Jared Goff. I'm going to sit back and just let value fall in my lap. No, you're better off moving up, taking some swings on these rookies, a round or two above their ADP. Now, it doesn't always hit, because we'll segue right into where I feel like somebody that I was right on, and I was lower on Caleb Williams. I worried about, the offensive, and why it felt like the Bears should have started with a new coach, because you're bringing in this coach that was already kind of on a hot seat and kind of underwhelmed, and you're completely bringing in a whole new quarterback, and it feels like being set up for failure there. And I loved the weapons that they brought in to support Caleb Williams, but it hasn't worked out. He hasn't been terrible, but I feel like he's a guy I didn't want anything to do with. Kirk Cousins, another guy that I was like 3 or 4 spots lower than average on. Dak Prescott, this is me just talking the quarterbacks that I feel like I was lower than average on these guys. And so far, quarter way through the season, I feel like I've been right with those guys. Now, I didn't expect, obviously Patrick Mahomes to fall off as much as he has. But these were the guys, like I said, that I normally like to sit back and take those values. But
yeah, for sure.
Jaden Daniels is a great example of why that's fine to do that depending on your league. But yeah, take those swings.
Jody, he's on pace for almost 200 carries. I mean, it's bananas. He could break. I don't know if he
can hold up, but us that knew with Cliff Kingsbury, he coached a QB6 season out of Kyler Murray as a rookie. So you're talking about Jaden Daniels, if anything, was a more accomplished thrower at college, but when it came to the scrambling ability, it was pretty similar.
Yeah. All right, another one where I was right. I was right on Malik Neighbors. Was getting him in a lot of spots. I mean, he's wide receiver 1 right now.
Our breakout player of the year. Mm-hmm.
That's right. Excellent. I just thought, everyone knew Malik Neighbors was good, but it was just, do you trust the fact, like, how bad do you think Daniel Jones is? I never thought Daniel Jones was as bad as people thought. And I know Brian Daboll is smart because he was in Buffalo. So I just trusted, hey, listen, I wasn't expecting wide receiver 1. And he probably, he's hitting the targets, but he probably won't finish wide receiver 1. But I thought where you were able to get him, even in the mid-second round, I think was fine. Into the third, some early on, I was able to get him in the 4th round. So a lot of my best teams have Malik Neighbors on it. I just trusted, Daboll to be smart and Daniel Jones to be good enough to get Malik Neighbors the ball. So, and he had never had a really good, even a decent receiver there in New York. So I was all right with that. And then another one for me, a little bit more, questionable, was Stephon Diggs. He's probably one of my highest owned, if not my highest owned receiver. I was getting him consistently at the 3-4 turn. I had to stop taking him because I'm like, I don't want 50% Diggs in case he gets hurt or whatever. But it was just a situation where I just thought Diggs is good, They're going to throw the ball a lot with a really good quarterback. And I wasn't so sure. Now I was wrong on Nico because I just didn't know, how much they were going to love Nico with all the weapons that they had there. Could Nico get his? I was like, maybe Diggs could be the wide receiver 1 in Houston. I was wrong about that, but he's been good enough. I mean, he's got 3 touchdowns already this year. He's been good enough he's wide receiver 9. And so if he can stay in the mid, if he can be a top 15 receiver, I think you stole him. And I think he certainly could stay in the top 15.
Yeah, you mentioned Nico, and I'll segue that right into me. That's one of my biggest misses because of the presence of a surging Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. I was concerned about target share. So I think I had Nico as my wide receiver 18 or 19 range, and right now he's got to be the odds-on favorite to finish the season as wide receiver number 1, right?
Yeah,
he's going to be right up there with CeeDee Lamb at this point, and I think he is the wide receiver 1 right now. So
he's wide receiver 2, like a half a point behind Malik.
Then
Neighbors, yeah,
I expect Neighbors is going to miss this week, so he'll slide into there. So yeah, I would begrudgingly call Nico a miss. It wasn't. I don't think it was egregious. I was 4 or 5 spots below ECR on him. So some receivers that I feel like that I was probably right on. Brandon Ayuk. I told any person that would listen and any show that I was on that there's no way he's replicating those efficiency numbers that he put up. And unless he got a huge surge in target share, he was going to drop off and, right on schedule. That's exactly what we're seeing. Brock Purdy is not throwing. It's only the quarter way through the season, but we're seeing a kind of a dip in touchdown percentage for him. And so it's made Brandon Ayuk almost invisible. Michael Pittman, another guy that I was lower than ECR on. I mean, pretty significantly lower. I had him outside of my top 30, I think. And, he hasn't done much. I'm looking through, scrolling through. Keon Coleman, these are guys. I was like, how about Andre Yosivas? So I was like 12 spots ahead of ECR on him. Once we learned, of course, I like Jermaine Burton. That was the guy all summer I was talking up and drafting so much, but it became pretty obvious in the second week of the preseason that he was well behind Yosivas as the wide receiver 3. So I had to, make it about face and start throwing out a lot of draft picks on him. So he's been, serviceable. It's not a guy, hopefully you're starting too much, but
right. Yeah, Brandon Ayuk's pretty amazing. He's wide receiver 59, and he's been there, and everyone's been hurt, and somehow he can't. I mean, he's got 29 points. Juwan Jennings.
That's another thing, Adam. It's a great point. With everyone as high on Ayuk as they were, if you had known, oh, by the way, Christian McCaffrey
and Kittle,
he's going to play in the first half of the season, or if he's even going to play at all, you'd be thinking, oh man, you'd be seeing rocket emojis and fire emojis and everything. People would be putting Ayuk as their top 5 and all that, and that's where I was like, I don't know about that.
Something's going on there for sure. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. All right, last one for me. And I, we talked about this before the show, and it's not necessarily there in the fantasy points yet or whatever, but. Devin Achane. So I have him as a slight hit, 2, 4, 6, 8. He's RB10. You were getting him around RB 8 or 9, 7 or 8, somewhere in there in the third round, kind of anytime you wanted him. And part of that was his explosiveness. I mean, the fact that he's RB10 and he hasn't had Tua for 3 games, I think is pretty impressive. He's getting all the touches. Oh, well, Raheem Mostert's hurt. Well, yeah. The bet was on 33-year-old Raheem Mostert getting hurt. Of course. And he'll probably be back this week, and he may or may not get hurt again, being 30, So I still see the process and that as being a win. And I think Tua will be back eventually in a couple of weeks. And then Achane can kind of kick off again. So he hasn't really been killing you Like I said, he's RB10, and I think if you got him, I mean, he's finished. I mean, he's ahead of Breece Hall, he's ahead of Bijan, he's ahead of a lot of these guys that were even going ahead of him still. So I still like the process on that. I'm not dropping the Jalen Wrights either. I'm not dropping all those guys because again, once Tua gets back, if he can stay healthy, I think the whole off. I mean, Tua the MVP of the NFL. I mean, that Dolphins team is so bad without him.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, and when it comes to the word valuable, yes, you have to at this point see that because it's just been such a drastic and dramatic decline. Like whoever they've put up, whatever ham and egger they've got under center over there, it doesn't seem to matter. And it's really interesting about Achane because I kind of finally started to come around for him. I don't know if Adam, you'll remember, but we were having a staff debates a little bit back and forth, and I was the one pushing for him being our bust of the year.
Yeah.
Now I really am proud of what we ultimately did choose him as a fade. I'm really proud of the write-up that I did on him and the issues I discussed with him. But what's crazy is everything in this first quarter of the season has played out for him to be this massive superstar running back. And we kind of only saw that in week 2 a little bit. Like Mostert's been hurt. He's getting, for the most part, he's getting a lot more touches and opportunities, but yet 3 of his 4 games, he's been under 3 yards per carry. And a lot of that has to do obviously with the quarterback not being there, but it feels like he bottomed out last week. You're talking about a very respectable Tennessee Titans defense, but Achane 10 carries for 15 yards. It was an embarrassment watching that offense on TV. Hopefully things can open up maybe another week with Huntley looking respectable, or maybe we need a Raheem Mostert back under center. I mean, back in the backfield with him to take off to take some of the coverage off. But all in all, it's really interesting because I started to come around towards the end, in August on HN. So you can even see in some of my FFWC drafts, I actually started taking him. And while I'm not unhappy with those teams, we're still waiting for that explosiveness. And I feel like, man, if Tua's not ready to come back in 2 more weeks, whenever he's first able to, it's really concerning because at that point, can Achane with Tua, can he recover and get back to where we drafted him? And the main point for me with why I was fading him is because I felt like people were drafting him at or above his possible ceiling because I just never thought he could develop into a consistent 20 touch guy and
like a workhorse back. Yeah, no, and that's where I'm kind of taking the win there is that he has been, and you can do this for every running back, but I'm looking, he has 67 fantasy points. He's RB, like I said, 10, I think. I mean, he gets tackled at the 1 and then gets stuffed in the next play. And I think he got in on the next carry, but it's one of those where the refs can't see and they mark him down at the half-yard line. If they give him that touchdown, he's RB6. Like it's, so I feel like like you said, he hasn't had the efficiency because the offensive line's been hurt and it stinks and Tua's not there. But I think, they've shown that they trust him. And when Tua comes back in a couple weeks, I think, you don't want to peak right now. You rather, if Tua's going to be hurt, you want him hurt now. You don't want him hurt in the fantasy playoffs. So hopefully Tua can stay healthy for the rest of the year and Achane can get smashed for you and for the rest of us at the end of the year. But yeah, dude. So I think it's a pretty good list of stuff we were right and wrong about. Good luck to everybody this week doing your waiver wire stuff. And I know the waivers got to be in tonight for the FFWC at 11 p.m. So make sure you guys are working on that. Anything else, Jody, that you're writing? Just the usual articles week to week here.
Yep. Thursday preview just published a few hours ago, and then tomorrow is the massive projections and rankings update that goes live, and we should have Matt's NFL player props for you.
Perfect. So that'd be good. Then my start sit will come out on Friday, I think, and we'll dig into those. It's a lot harder now with, or maybe a lot easier now with.
Now that you can include Mahomes as a possible start.
That's right.
Hey, you better be careful. You don't want people getting mad at you.
With so many bye weeks and injuries, it's almost like you start whoever's healthy. There's no, you know what I mean? So, but we'll dig into that for everybody. But all right. Hey, everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for all the comments in the chat. Like, subscribe, do all that great stuff on YouTube and all that. We'll catch you next week. See you guys.